Cool. Firstly, a big thank you to all of you for joining in on a Sunday evening. So, a big thank you. Secondly, a big thank you to the organizers for having me over and truly an honor for me to present this small tech talk. Why you should start using it and how you should start using it as well. So I have a small coding section as well in the talk today. So hopefully you find this entire session informative. With that, I kickstart the entire presentation. So let me start. So essentially, if you've kind of logged in to today's session, then you might be wondering who exactly am I? Well, my name is Bhavesh. I'm a data scientist based out of Mumbai, India, and I happen to run two YouTube channels. I run a machine learning based channel wherein I try to create some small 5-10 minute videos wherein I teach data science and machine learning. I pick up one concept and I kind of create a small explainer video around it. So that is where my first channel comes into play. The second channel is again something wherein I try to teach Python, some small tips and tricks regarding Python. So if you happen to get time, do visit the channels and yeah, feel free to explore more in terms of the videos that I've uploaded already. Uh, yeah, I've already so I've been introduced in terms of who am I. So I'm basically a Google developer expert in machine learning based out of India. And I've also been awarded the prestigious 40 under 40 Data Scientist Award by Analytics India magazine in January 2020. So that's a bit about me. What am I expecting, or who the ideal audience is for this talk? So the ideal audience is someone who's kind of familiar with machine learning concepts, basic machine learning concepts like supervised learning, unsupervised learning, some basic idea of deep learning, what a neural network is, and some basic understanding of TensorFlow. So essentially, TensorFlow is like that library wherein Google has heavily contributed to that library and open sourced it. So basic knowledge of TensorFlow, basic knowledge of Python, basic understanding of data science and machine learning concepts is all that is required for this particular talk. With that, I'll kind of share across the agenda as well. So I'll briefly touch upon what TensorFlow Hub is, why you should start using it. Then I'll have like a exact walk along as well, code walk along, wherein I'll kind of show you the power of TF Hub and how you should start utilizing it for your daily machine learning slash deep learning tasks. And finally, so the way I envision the entire talk is the first 45 minutes is where I'll cover the three parts. That is the theory, why you should start using it, as well as the code walk along. So I'll cover that in 45 minutes. The remaining 15 minutes is where we can have a question and answer session specific to TensorFlow Hub, or if you have any queries regarding data science or machine learning as a field, feel free to drop your questions in the chat window, and I'll be more than happy to take that up in the last 15 minutes of the session that we have. Cool. With that, I'll kickstart why exactly or what exactly is TensorFlow Hub and why you should start using it. So, machine learning essentially is a very ever evolving field, and every day you have tons of research papers that are published. Now, one of the major issues that a lot of practitioners find is if you want to apply machine learning to solve a problem, you essentially need a simple model, a simple model with a simple type of task and do those models well. So if you happen to read one research papers or in blog post, let's say you happen to read one of them. So the paper that I'm highlighting right now is BERT. BERT is that amazing pre-trained model that Google is now using for search as well. So your Google search results are now being populated using the BERT model. So if I happen to read BERT as a paper, then there are different use cases that I can come up with. So I can use BERT, the language model, for sentiment analysis. I can use BERT for a question answer system as well. So there are tons of things that I can create out of one research paper that I read and one of them, which is BERT. And I want to try it on my problem statement. Let's stick to a simpler problem, that is sentiment analysis. Given a piece of text, if I want to classify that as a positive sentiment text or a negative sentiment text, then essentially I want to apply that model that I've just read in a research paper into my data set. So the other challenges that I find once I kind of decided I want to go forward and use this in my workflow, then I search more details regarding this research paper that I've read, and I come across different repositories where the challenge now becomes that some repositories will have the model code. Some places you will have the model in the repository itself, but it would be in a very it wouldn't be stored in a very proper sophisticated manner. Sometimes the pre-trained model would be stored in a different storage capacity altogether. You will have models stored in Dropbox and stuff like that. The other challenge that you might also find or you might also encounter is sometimes a model that is there. You may have to run a script in order to download the model. Uh, and given how machine learning keeps evolving, you have different versions of models being quickly available. So the other challenge comes in that which version of the model am I using? So different questions that need to be answered if you have to try out a research paper, implement the theory, implement the model, build in a fit with your particular use cases. So the questions that you may have to answer is, how do I essentially use it if it's hosted on a GitHub repository with not a clear indication of the README files that exist on the repository? If there's nothing, literally no steps mentioned, then how do you reproduce the entire model execution phase or model retraining phase at your end? So that is one piece. Is the model safe? If you happen to download some set of files, is it gonna infect your system, or is it actually safe to download files that you don't have any control or you don't have any idea of what the files are? So is it safe to download files from GitHub repositories that you aren't aware of? Sorry. The other piece is it fair? Now, there's a lot of talk that is going around the table that if I want to try out something for my particular use case, am I using a model that has been trained on unbiased data set? So is the person who's created the entire model, has he used a data set which had some amount of bias? So that is one question that a lot of people or a lot of practitioners have to answer. And the other piece is it the latest version? Within say 4 5 months of time, you will have multiple versions of that particular model. So rather than using an outdated version of the model, one basic question is, am I using the most latest version of the model, which will be much more accurate as compared to the previous versions? So there are tons of questions that come up. It is here that TensorFlow Hub comes into picture. So TF Hub, it's something. So TensorFlow Hub is also called as TF Hub. So TensorFlow Hub is that place where all your TensorFlow, so all your requirements that you have with respect to research papers, with respect to the state of the art models that are open sourced by the community, all of that is something that you can find in this one central location called as TensorFlow Hub. So it's very easy to use. You have good documentation, you have code snippets, and much more available on TensorFlow Hub. Now, when I speak about TensorFlow Hub, what exactly does it have? Well, TensorFlow Hub's rich repository of models cover a wide range of machine learning tasks. So, for example, in case of images that you see here, you will have different models for image-related tasks such as image classification, object detection, image generation, and style transfer. So there are different use cases wherein you can apply deep learning on images. So a common use case that a lot of us try out is image detection, wherein you want to detect some part of an image. You want to detect whether someone's wearing a mask or not, or some other use case as well. So it is here that rather than using a pre-trained model that has been open sourced by someone who is kind of unknown to you, it's better to go on TF Hub, explore the different models. That is where TF Hub comes in handy for a lot of image-related tasks. When I speak about text-related tasks as well, I just mentioned about the amazing research paper or the amazing BERT model. So you will have different state-of-the-art models like BERT, Albert, universal sentence encoders that can support a wide range of natural language understanding tasks as well. So you can have question answering systems as well. You can have text classification, semantic analysis based models as well. So tons of different models is something that you can explore with respect to text on TensorFlow Hub. Um, if you happen to apply machine learning or deep learning on video related tasks, uh, a, a, a field that is kind of progressing really well is uh, segmenting out different objects in videos so that you are able to better understand what the scene is. So you have video action recognition. So using GSS, that is the web version of TensorFlow models, wherein you can try out different actions using your web camera, and you can kind of create actions you want to do with videos, and you can basically apply machine learning or deep learning models on videos to extract or to create some different tasks as well. One of them is action recognition, gesture recognition. Imagine playing a video game just by gestures. So that is something that you can also explore given the wide range of models that have been open source. So that is something that I wanted to lay stress on. The new additions that TensorFlow Hub has is the audio related models as well. So imagine if you have two people speaking, and if you want to detect at what point of time which person spoke, then you have models for that as well. You have models for pitch detection. So once you know what the pitch is, or once you know what the audio frequency is, you can essentially isolate my noise or a human's noise and a human's voice. Sorry, not noise, voice and noise. So you can kind of segregate noise as well as voice. So you can try out different models that currently exist in terms of audio models as well. So yeah, this is the kind of diversity that you'll find when you think of TensorFlow Hub. And I would strongly advise all of you who have either entered the field or are exploring the field as well to go through TF Hub, try out different models. You would really enjoy the ease of use in terms of the different models that exist. And I'm pretty sure you would find your particular use case already encapsulated in one of the pre-trained models that exist on TensorFlow Hub. So that is one thing that I wanted to specify here. Um Now, what is the uniqueness of TensorFlow Hub and why you should use it apart from the wide variety of models that exist? Essentially, Google has invested a lot of energy in making models in TensorFlow Hub easily reusable for composing new models for transfer learning. So, essentially, if you have a pre-trained model that has been trained for 90 classes. So just to give you an example, if you have an image classification task and you come across a model which is a TF Lite model or a normal TensorFlow model as well, the uniqueness of using TensorFlow Hub is within very few lines of code. If you have your data set ready with the images as well as labels, then you can retrain the model that already exists on TF Hub with very few lines of code. So you have a flag called as is trainable. If you want to retrain the model with your custom data set, you can even do that. If you want to use the model as is, then you can use that as well. So a lot of emphasis has gone behind better usability of models, and yeah, that is something that I wanted to highlight. with respect to TensorFlow Hub. The other uniqueness is most of the things that you find on TensorFlow Hub, all of them can be basically retrained, is one thing that I've already captured. The other unique piece is there's good amount of integration with Keras, which is now kind of like an integration with TensorFlow. So you can start using the high-level Keras API, or if you want to stick to TensorFlow's low-level APIs, you can use that as well. So all of that is pretty much possible. Now, the other piece that kind of makes TensorFlow Hub as a repository very unique is TensorFlow Extended. So now models in their isolated state are not that great. You have to deploy models and you have to catch hold of the inferences that come up from the models. It is here that TensorFlow kind of gives you like a complete solution in form of TensorFlow Extended, where you can have the end-to-end pipeline created for you, basis your use case, basis your data set. If you have data coming in form of streaming data, and if you have a model that you want to retrain at a daily level as well, all of that is pretty much possible. So most of your models on TensorFlow Hub, if you want to go forward and deploy them, then they have support or they have good integration with the TensorFlow Extended suite as well, wherein you can kind of integrate that. There are tons of models that you can kind of convert from your normal TensorFlow model into a light version, which can be used on your web browsers. So that is where TensorFlow JS comes into picture. JS is a short form for JavaScript. So all your browsers essentially run on JavaScript, HTML and JavaScript. So TensorFlow JS is that particular interface wherein you can create models in TensorFlow, convert them to TensorFlow JS, and essentially use it in your web application. This kind of say helps you create very unique web applications that you can utilize while you're using Google Chrome. So that is one integration that is possible. If you happen to go a step further and if you happen to deploy models on your cell phone, so if I want to create my own version of Google Lens, wherein I point my camera at a particular object, and I'm able to understand what that object is, essentially all of that is also possible. So what you have to do essentially is you have to basically catch hold of your TensorFlow model, pass it through an engine, convert that to a TF Lite model, and then deploy it in form of an Android app. So all the models, I wouldn't say all the models, but most of the models can easily be converted into an equivalent TF Lite model. And that essentially can be integrated with Android or iOS as well. I'm not too sure of iOS, but Android definitely you can create models in TF Lite, create an Android application to make an inference from the model, and then you can use it in your cell phone as well. The Coral piece that you see here is essentially the edge devices. When I speak about edge devices, think of your IoT devices, your microcontrollers like Arduino, Raspberry Pi. All of them have now good support for TensorFlow models. So essentially, you can create custom uh, models which can run on Coral Edge devices, which have TPU support as well. TPUs are essentially tensor processing unit, which are kind of specially custom made hardware so that you can accelerate inferences on edge devices. So TF hub models have support for Coral or edge devices as well. So yeah, I mean, right from retraining models to the wide variety of models that you have, along with the ready to use models that you see here, every piece is covered here in TensorFlow Hub. Uh, at this point of time, TensorFlow Hub has more than 1,000 models with good amount of documentation, code snippets, and you also have some simple demo to try out in form of an interactive visualization on the page itself. So this is something that I'll show you before I show you the code as well. But yeah, a lot of effort has gone behind creating the entire TF Hub interface. So yeah, that is one thing that I wanted to highlight. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is TF Hub also helps bring these models to life in a very interactive way. So some of the publishers create custom components to highlight their amazing work. So you can upload an image, try out the inference or try out the prediction that you see from a model, and then essentially use it in your daily workflow. You can try uploading audio files or image files for different models and see how they perform on say unseen data or your custom data set, and then you can kind of create your own solution using the specific model that you have in mind. So yeah, that is one thing. And the other piece is so essentially, if you happen to open one of the models on TFR, this essentially is what you would see. So many TensorFlow Hub models also have an interactive Google Colab notebook. The advantage of using Google Colab again is you don't have to worry about the hardware requirements. Most of the things that you would do would be on Google's servers, so you don't have to worry about how much say size this model would take in. Essentially, most of the models would run on a normal GPU session. If you have like really big models, then you will have some amount of challenges. But most of the models that are currently hosted on TFHub should run smoothly on Google Colab as well. If your requirement increases in terms of hardware resources, then you can always upgrade to a Google Colab Pro account, and you can kind of look at say different ways of increasing your say compute capacity as well as memory capacity. So yeah, that is something that I wanted to highlight before I kind of go through the coding section. So yeah, before I go through the coding section, I wanted to show you the exact TF Hub interface. So I'll quickly change this to browser. So this essentially is, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Okay. So this essentially is a TF Hub website. You have the URL here, which is tfhub.dev. Uh, there are tons of different models that are available, which have been categorized in terms of what task they are essentially performing. So you will have different embeddings based models for NLP. You will have classification models. You will have question answering models as well. Image problem domains as well. You have classification, object detection, uh, segmentation. Then you have video related say models as well. So you have classification, generation, audio, text, and here you have audio related say problems. So here you will have something called as a command detection model as well. So here it's basically a TensorFlow JS model which helps you understand which. So if you speak up, down, left, right, in your browser itself, once you kind of host this TensorFlow JS model, you would essentially have the prompt reading out what you are speaking. So all of this is a very like a breakthrough thing wherein you can kind of run amazing deep learning models on your browser itself. If you notice the size here, given this is a web compatible model, it's a very small model which occupies close to around 6 MB. So this is the power of TensorFlow Hub. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is the coding aspect is also not very scary. You would have a very limited amount of code that you would have to write in order to get things up and running. So this is just one small demonstration of how you can download a model and then start working with it. And yeah, this is something that I kind of help you realize in terms of how you can implement this particular model in Google Colab or in your particular local setup, and how you can start utilizing the different models that exist on TF Hub. So uh, if you happen to visit any country in Asia, then essentially you would want to say visit different say landmarks of that particular country. So there are different models that exist at this point of time for different continents. I've chosen Asia, and I will kind of take you through simple examples on how you can start utilizing it. So think of this as a simple Google Lens kind of an application that you can also deploy in your mobile if you happen to convert this TensorFlow model into a TF-Lite model. So if you happen to visit a new country, you just have to point and shoot uh, on a particular landmark, and the landmark name would be populated in front of you. So there are different models that exist for different continents. So let me first show you that. So if I uh, just search for landmark detection. Okay, for some weird reason, it's giving me different results. But yeah, essentially, this is what I wanted to show you. So it's basically a landmark recognition model, which is fine-tuned for Asia. One good thing about TensorFlow Hub is you will have all the steps written in terms of reproducing it in your local machine. So I'll come to that point as well. But here is a simple interactive visualization of the model wherein you have one particular, say, landmark, and it's giving you different probabilities and different, say, results as well. I'll quickly go forward and upload one of my image, and I'll kind of show you how that how the model makes a prediction and which landmark am I speaking about. So I'll quickly click here, drag or click to upload an image. I'll go to downloads, and this is a very famous monument in Mumbai. So I've uploaded the image, and as you can see, I have the results populated here, which is Gateway of India. You would see multiple instances of the same monument. So there is a reason for it, which I'll kind of explain when I come down. But yeah, overall, it's doing a really great job in terms of which landmark it is. And this landmark is essentially in Mumbai. So yeah, this is one thing that I wanted to highlight. If I go forward and click on the second image, so this essentially is again a very big monument in Mumbai. So this is right next to the main station that we have. So this is called as Municipal Corporation Building in Mumbai, which is right next to this main window called as Chhatrapati Shivaji Terminus. So it's doing a very accurate job in terms of detecting the landmarks as well. And here the author has created like a drag and drop interface, which you can play around before you start utilizing it. So yeah, that is something that I wanted to highlight. Now, before you start using the model, it is a good practice to go through all the details that are mentioned here. So this module has been, say, fine-tuned for Asia. It gives you an overview of what the model can do for you. So it basically is trained for recognizing close to 17,000 or close to 18,000 popular landmarks in Asia. So it's a mobile friendly version, and it can run on your cell phones as well. Now here is where you will have to pay a lot of attention as well. It expects a 3-channel RGB image, 321, 321 cross 321, and the intensity values of images, which essentially range from 0 to 255, they will have to be scaled between 0 to 1. So that is one expectation that the input has. The output is something called as prediction colon logits, where you will have a vector of similarity scores. There was some bug that was there, which has been rectified right now. But for every label, so there is something called as a label map, which I'll come to when I show you the code as well. So every number which the model outputs will essentially correspond to one landmark, which is essentially saved into this small Excel file. So uh, these are the steps that have been mentioned as well in terms of how you should go forward and use it. And essentially, how this model was trained is what is mentioned here in the paper, and it was trained on what data set. So all of that is mentioned here. Here, one challenge is you cannot retrain the model. So that is one thing that is clearly mentioned here. And yeah, all of the details have been mentioned here in the web page itself. So before you start utilizing the model, before you start downloading the model, it's a good practice to read the documentation and then start utilizing it. So uh, having said that, now I'll quickly jump to the coding aspect as well. What I've done, so I'm using Google Colab. I'm not running this on my local system. I'm currently, so I don't feel the need of a GPU at this point of time. So I'm currently using a CPU based system. So if I show you the runtime type as well, I'm not using any hardware accelerator because it's more of a prediction at this point of time. So you can always tweak around with your requirements. If you want to train deep learning models, then you can go in for a GPU or a TPU as well. Both the images that I showed you right now, that is image 1 and image 2, I've already uploaded them in the current Google Colab session. If you don't like uploading every time, then you can always upload it to Google Drive and then link Google Drive to your current Google Colab session. So yeah, I'll quickly start. I'll zoom in a bit so that everything's visible. So I'll quickly start by importing NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib. PIL is a library that you require for image visualization and image manipulation. You would require TensorFlow and you would require TensorFlow Hub as well. So I'll quickly go forward and run the cell. Uh, Here, if you look at what I've done here is I first specified the model URL, which is essentially essentially exists here. So you just have to click on copy URL. Whatever is copied in your clipboard, you can paste it here. So that is what I've done here. Label URL map is something that exists here. I've taken this as is and I've pasted the exact link of the CSV file here. And image shape is essentially the input image shape that is required by the model. So that is what I've entered here. So I'll quickly run the cell. Now, how do you basically download the model? If you recollect, I showed you the first image as well. Just a sec. I think I've kind of removed that, but yeah, the idea is you have very little lines of code that you have to write in order to download the model. Most of the helper code would already be given to you in the exact URL itself. So here you have the starter code, which is something that I've utilized and I've kind of modified things a bit. So I've created an instance of Keras layer, hub.keras layer. I've passed in the model URL. I've specified the input shape and I've specified the output key, which is equal to predictions hyphen logic. Uh, so that is something that you can see here. The model outputs to this particular key value pair. So that is what I want to extract. So that is what I've kind of specified here. I'll quickly go forward and I'll run the cell. What I'm essentially doing here is I'm downloading the model. I am saving all the weights into a variable called as classifier. I'm also specifying the input shape to the classifier as well as the output key that I'm kind of interested in. So I'll quickly go forward and run the cell. So the model has been downloaded. It was kind of a small model, so it didn't take a lot of time. Moving on to the next piece, which is the label map that I showed you. I'll quickly read that into a data frame DF. Data frame is essentially like a table-like structure, something similar to like an Excel workbook. I'll quickly show you the first 5 rows of the data frame. So whatever outputs that you get from the model would essentially be numbers. So you'll have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. The idea is I have to map these particular IDs to the exact, say, landmarks that are present in the label map. So in order to do that efficiently using Python, what I do is I create this data frame that exists, which has 2 columns into a dictionary. So I'll basically use the ID as the key and the name of the landmark as the value of that dictionary. So I'll quickly do that. Now, label map essentially is a dictionary which contains keys and values. My keys are essentially numbers ranging from 0 to 17,000 for people who are confused. 17,000 is the output unique labels. So And if I click on type essentially tells me what kind of a structure it is in Python. So type of label underscore map is a dictionary. If I say call label map a random number, say 2210, given that time in India is right now 22:10. So uh, I'll have 2210 as a landmark that would be shown here. So this is essentially like a dictionary containing key and value. My key is the ID, value is the exact monument name or the landmark name, if I may say so. So that is there. Uh, Now, what I've already uploaded two images, image one and image two. So I'll quickly show you the images. So I'll change this to image one.jpg. I'll open it using the image command from pill, and I'll reshape it to the input size that is expected by the model. So that is what I've achieved in this piece of code. And I'll quickly show you the image as well so that uh, I'm not bluffing the image and the model output as well. So I'll quickly show you that as well. So this is the first image. It has the Gateway of India monument right behind me. So that is what we have. Then some amount of manipulations again. The model expects input values between 0 and 1. So if you read this piece, it has to be scaled between 0 and 1. That is what I've done here. TensorFlow models also expect, or if you can also make batch-wise predictions of multiple images, which is where I kind of add a new axis. I'll kind of explain this once I reach here. So I'll quickly run the cell and I'll show you the shape. Shape tells you the input shape. So if you see here, the model expected an RGB image, that is a 3-channel image with this particular size, which is something that is clearly evident here. If I have to make multiple predictions, like if I have 10, 15 images, and if I want to make a batch prediction, then I can kind of stack up multiple images, uh, which are say 321, 321, 3 in size, and I can pass that through our model, and I'll have multiple predictions generated. So that is the power of TF Hub models. Sorry. So this one essentially specifies that I'm interested in making prediction for one particular image at this point of time. Now the image is set up. I've already downloaded the model. The only piece that is remaining right now is making a prediction. So I'll quickly call this particular line of code. I'll run this. Now I have result. Now essentially you would be thinking that the result would have the exact monument name, but sadly that's not the case. It will have an array of values. It will give out an array of values for different IDs ranging from 0 to 17,770. It essentially gives you the probability score. So the highest probability score. So if you remember here, you can have. So if I show you the output here, so here you had probability scores here. How confident is the model in saying that this particular landmark is Municipal Corporation building in Mumbai? So that is what is displayed here. What I want is the one particular monument or landmark which has the highest probability score, which is what is say extracted from this piece of code. So if I just catch hold of this piece of code, then what I'm doing is out of all the values in the probabilities or all the probability values, I want to extract the ID of the maximum probability. So that is what I get when I run this piece of code. So here the ID of the maximum probability score is 40,082, which now I want to pass it through the key value pair dictionary that I've created, which is label map. So when I run this cell now, I'll get the exact monument that I kind of showed you initially, which is Gateway of India. So that is what we have here. I'll quickly show you the say a demo for the second image. The only thing that changes is the image. Model has been downloaded, so I'll quickly load this into our variable img, and this is the image. I'll quickly do the input pre-processing that is required before I make a prediction. I'll show you the shape again, which is 1, comma 321, comma 321, comma 3. So the height and width are same. That is 321 cross 321. It's a square image. It has three channels, RGB, and it is one image. So I want to make a prediction for only one image. That is where you have one initially. I pass it through the classifier. I get a result, which is again an array of probability scores. I catch hold of the maximum, I catch hold of the ID with the maximum probability score. And that is what I look up into the dictionary that I created, which is Municipal Corporation of Greater Mumbai. So yeah, that's how simple it is. There are models wherein you can upload your own custom data set, retrain the model, and start utilizing it. So yeah, that is all that I have. I think given that we've kind of started at 8, I think it's around 8:45, 8:46. So we are well on track. So yeah, that is what I had in today's say session. Uh, so yeah, any questions? Before I go to the question answer session as well, the slides and code are available here. So if you have your cell phone handy at this point of time, you can scan this particular barcode. It will take you to the GitHub repository that I've created. You can kind of download the code as well as down or play around with the code, and you can also say